This week I learned that not only is Silent Hill's Pyramid Head in Dead by Daylight, but apparently he has a flat ass! Oh, the horror! The good news is that all of this has been addressed in the newest update, so we can go back to criticizing the Xenomorph's comically big forehead and joke about Godzilla's love handles. Hey, I'm your guest host, Cyril, and that's just one of the crazy things that I learned this week. Here are 10 more. This week we learned that fans of open-world crime games will have the opportunity to return to San Andreas later this year. No, not because Rockstar Games is bringing Grand Theft Auto 5 to next-generation consoles, though that is definitely something that's happening in a couple of months. The real reason people are excited is because there's a red-hot rumor that the company that abandoned Bully and Manhunt and Midnight Club and dozens of other franchises is currently readying a new collection of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and the aforementioned San Andreas. It'll reportedly contain a combination of new and old graphics, suggesting that it might ride that line between being a remake and a remaster. It's also rumored to be coming to the Switch, which would be the first time one of those open-world 3D Grand Theft Auto games appeared on a Nintendo console. Look, I'm not gonna lie here, it's easy to make fun of Rockstar for not being able to count to 6. But the truth is that I'll be right there on day one to buy an upgraded version of Vice City. Yeah, I've come to accept that I am that kind of person. I would really like to say that this week I learned that a lot of gamers are hot for Knuckles, but because I use Google Images from time to time, I already knew that. What I didn't know is that the makers of the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie also seem to be acutely aware of the internet's horniness for the echidna, because this week they tapped Idris Elba and his deep, sexy voice to play the furry cartoon character in the 2022 sequel film. Let's hope the internet can keep it in their pants until April. With Fortnite scoring Ariana Grande in both Apex Legends and Warzone taking up the rest of the Battle Royale oxygen, it's time for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds to shake things up and take back some of that attention. This week we learned that the big change they went with was to make the confusing name even more confusing. That's right, the game formerly known as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is now known as PUBG Battlegrounds. Yeah, it's literally PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is easily the year's most redundant new title. It's basically the video game equivalent of ATM machines, or LCD displays, or UPC codes. Honestly, I don't know how you would bring people back to PUBG, but I do know that this is definitely not the way. Hey Vampire Hunters, do you want to play an incomplete version of Castlevania Bloodlines? Well, this week we learned that the 0.5 beta ROM of the famous Genesis action game has been leaked online for all to play. While most of the stages aren't a radical departure from the cartridge we got back in 1994, we do get some changes to the backgrounds, and the Stage 4 engine room is completely different. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the description box for anybody who wants to give this long-lost version a crack of the whip. Speaking of cracking the whip, this week we learned that we'll finally have a chance to play a legit version of Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. For those not in the know, this was a 2019 mobile installment of Konami's popular vampire hunting series that was delisted last year. Now it's coming back to Apple Arcade, though it's unclear if the port will keep the daily missions, the microtransactions, the in-game currency, and the rest of the mobile gaming mainstays. It really does sound like there's a good game buried deep down there somewhere, so I'm eager to finally have a chance to dig into Grimoire of Souls. Now here's something that probably shouldn't surprise anybody. This week we learned that the Penny Arcade Expo may have been a little bit too optimistic in their 2021 plans. With a new wave of the Delta variant ruining everybody's summer, organizers of PAX Australia have decided to admit defeat and cancel the October event. Oddly enough, Penny Arcade seems to be ready to go with PAX Prime, which is going to be held in Seattle in just a few weeks. Thankfully, they've backtracked on their original stance, and they will now require proof of vaccination or at least a negative COVID test before they let you in. Look, I love PAX, and I've been to almost every one of the events that's been held in the Pacific Northwest. But, and I'm being serious here, who the hell wants to go to a gaming convention right now? I mean, they were a breeding ground for disease in the best of conditions. Hell, it was so bad that they coined the term PAX Pox. Seriously, just maybe sit it out this year. Now here's something you don't see every day. This week we learned that for the first time since November 1988, all 30 of Japan's 30 top-selling physical games this week are Switch games. That's right, 100% of the list. It's an interesting mix of both new and old, with recent releases like Monster Hunter Stories 2 and Skyward Sword HD fighting it out with relative oldies like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Minecraft, which ended up taking the top spot with nearly 15,000 units being sold that week. Yeah, that's impressive, but don't think it's gonna take another 33 years to repeat that accomplishment. I think the same thing's gonna happen next week. We already know that those lovable Goombas like to menace Mario and Luigi, but this week we learned that they also pose a real threat in the real world. What you're looking at right now is footage taken from a Super Nintendo World ride that saw a stack of Goombas break free and crash to the ground in front of a bunch of stunned theme park goers. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but it does serve as a reminder that Goombas can be dangerous. Sure, they may be small and easy to jump on, but you gotta watch out, they'll get you when you least expect it. Just ask Mario. This week we learned that not only is it No Man's Sky's 5th anniversary, but developer Hello Games will be celebrating this milestone by giving away the 17th free expansion pack. After seeing the outrage and controversy that came with the original 2016 launch, I have to say that No Man's Sky is shaping up to be one of the greatest comeback stories of all time. I mean, Hello Games has made sweeping changes that have fundamentally altered the way that people explore outer space, including adding multiplayer, overhauling the visuals, allowing crossplay, introducing VR, tossing players into mechs, and so much more. All of this without adding loot boxes or season passes. See, Electronic Arts, it can be done. And finally, not to get too sappy here, but this week I learned that we have a lot of amazing fans here at Defunct Games. With the website going down and everything else in my life kind of going wrong, this is a real low week for me. I honestly didn't know what to expect when I reached out for website help, but I've been overwhelmed by the outpouring of support both in the comments, as well as on Discord and Twitter and email, and well, just everywhere else. I'll confess, there was a point where it really did feel hopeless. But after seeing the suggestions and realizing that there are people out there that I can talk to about these issues, I picked myself up and, well, I feel a lot more optimistic now. Unfortunately, the site is still down, but I have tried some of the things that you've recommended. This week I'm gonna reach out and DM some people and, I don't know, maybe see if I can get them to steer me in the right direction. I know, I wish I had better news for you. But the fact that I even know what direction I'm headed in is at least a good start. Thank you again for supporting Defunct Games and helping us through this frustrating time. You rock, and I don't say it enough. Hey, thanks for watching me guest host 10 Things We Learned this week. Lorne had an emergency pop up this week, so I'm happy to take over hosting duties for an episode or two, and I hope you don't mind. Don't worry, we'll be back next Sunday with even more news. Now, here's the question I have for you. What did you learn this week? Let me see your revelations in the comments below. In other news, we have a packed week in store for you. Not only do we have a bunch of reviews, but we'll be hitting the streets for tomorrow's brand new Game Over episode. Also, look for a full review of one of my most anticipated new games, Road 96. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,